Happy Sabbath, everyone. I hope you're well. Who can remember the sermon this morning? The 4 things that you should be able to remember. Wine. W is for what? And I? N? And E. This afternoon, I want us to talk about excuses that we give. The statistics speak for themselves. 500 VBS children, 165 plus Pathfinders, less than 100 ambassadors, 25 youth, and then only 2, according to Elder Nkoba, are become elders in this church, born and bred in this church. So we started with how many children? 500. How many elders end up from that group, cohort? 2. The rest of the young people come from outside. This afternoon, we want to talk about where do we lose them? Where is the disconnect? We've had a chance to hear you through various walls. The ambassadors team sent a couple of questions to you, and we'll see the responses this afternoon. But before we begin, I want to ask Elder Nkoba, why do we have this disconnect? You're a parent. Where do we lose these young people?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon again. I want to welcome all of us to this wonderful discussion. Disconnect. There are 2 things very important to create this separation and separating. You know, when people grow up, at one time you expect them to get out of your house. But our really biggest concern right now is we don't seem to click with those ones even we live in the same house. Where we live, we left, I think, parental guidance should have been one of the major contributing factor to the disconnect, because you know, we are in a city life. We are so involved in many other activities to make sure the home runs. Secondly, we have valued much school than the education. That means we are allowing our children to go from school A, school B, school C, to allow me to do what I need to do. I think that's a place we have hidden our children until the year comes when they are disconnecting. Already we disconnected long ago. Thank you.
I actually forgot to introduce the panelists, so my apologies. From my extreme end, David Nguturi, please say something about yourself.
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. My name is Nguturi David. I am a member of New Life SDA Church. I am serving as a secretary to the PCM Council. Just to say something that he said, he told me that I should say something. And we have the PCM week that is upcoming from tomorrow to Sabbath. So I should promote, and I will welcome you, everyone, to please come join us every day, 5 p.m. and on Sabbath from 8 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Nice. I'm Davis Ongeri. Something about myself, of course, it's a lot, but in this context, I am the ambassadors, New Life Ambassadors Ministry spiritual leader, and I'm here to represent. Okay, we gave a form, a Google form, an email form for them to answer why they think we have disconnect between the parents and ourselves. So I'm here to represent their grievances as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Elder, and then we come this way and to Mom, because I want Mom to talk a little bit about why parents give excuses.
Thank you. My name is Crispus Nkoba, one of the elders of this church. I am a parent, and also I am an engineer by profession and a psychologist. Thank you.
My friend?
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. I am Naomi Misati, born and bred in New Life Church. Yes.
Among the 2 that we hope to be future women ministries leader. So remember my statistics from 500 to 2. Yes, ma'am.
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. Margaret Okenye. I am a mother that has mothered our children in this church. And a wife that became wife in this church.
Thank you very much. And my name is Timothy Abu, a member of this church. This afternoon, we are going to delve deeper into the issue of the disconnect. And I apologize for not having had a chance to introduce my colleagues. Margaret, why do parents give excuses? Why don't they meet the end of their bargain?
From my experience, I think the excuses we give stem from lack of skills of parenting. And this I mean, you grew up in the village. Most of my age mates don't deny that. We grew up in the village. Then we were propelled to boarding secondary schools. Then we were taken to campuses. And all this was in pursuit of academic excellence. Who build our skills to be parents? Then you come to church, and probably you're basically in the youth, and the next time you get married, once you get married, you have God gifts you with a child. And when you look at that couple, they've just been going through the steps of life more so just because they have met, but because there is no intentionality in giving skills to parents to become parents, then we have no skills to be able to parent that child. And as we move, and then where we start going wrong is because now we want to go back to how we were brought up. But I remember I mentioned where? Growing up in the village. Of course, there are those who have been brought up in Nairobi, and they have been able to maybe get exposed to some other aspects. But when you look at the fact that now you're trying to bring your generation to the current generation, then you're not able to actually cope, because you are dealing, one, with a new entity that is unique and that needs your attention, but you don't know how to do it.
Excuse number one. You can hear excuse number one. I don't have skills of parenting. This afternoon, you're talking about excuses, but we'll come back to the solution in a minute. Davis, what's your excuse as a young man? Why are you disconnected with your parents?
Thank you. Well, as I said earlier, I am representing people, so whatever I'm going to say is not a reflection of what I personally experience. Yeah.
That's a disclosure.
Yeah, I have good parents, so yeah. Anyway, as I said, we produced some Google form, and some of the issues I have here are pertinent if I see them. And I'm going to present them more or less as questions. So I think the first question I'd ask the parents is, what do you think the role of a female firstborn child is? Just allow yourself to internalize. And what do you think it is supposed to be? Is your female firstborn child supposed to be your co-parent? Do you feel like sometimes you neglect your role as a mother and paste it to your female daughter? Just ask yourself. Also, I have another question. What's the line between your child being your child and a separate entity? Do you feel like sometimes everything your child has grown up to be is a product of what you envision that child to be, and not necessarily what that child wanted to be? I see some of you nodding your heads, so maybe I'm hitting somewhere. Yeah. Some of them talk about their parents having this quote-unquote old way of parenting, which necessarily isn't aimed at getting respect, but rather fear. So most of them rule from an authoritarian point of view. And just on that point, it's rather interesting that a parent would be an authoritarian parent growing up, but suddenly wants to be your friend when you're old enough. Do you find that to be somehow, how is it that each time I told you as a child, maybe as a male child, I have been hurt, or I am hurting, or probably my leg is hurting, you told me to be a man, right? But in the future, you want me to come and talk to you about my financial decisions. You want me to involve you in my decisions as far as the lady I choose is concerned. How? Well, there are a lot. But also another issue is about communication. I don't know about you, but sometimes I tend to feel like the older people approach issues from, I don't know how exactly to put it, but let me put a case in point. So suppose maybe I was left. Maybe I was dating someone, then that someone left me, right? Yeah, an issue you can relate to, I know, at some stage in your life, unless you're young enough. So let's say I go and tell my parents that there's a parent who'd sympathize and empathize with you and probably tell you, okay, don't worry, you'll get someone else, right? But there's another parent who'll tell you, oh, umeachwa, hata mimi niliwachwa, so don't worry, that is life. I know it's life. Sisi wote tunaachwa at some point. Yeah? But as far as communication is concerned, what does that resonate with a child? Does a child grow up knowing that my parent is a safe space, someone who I can rely on? Or is my parent just another person? Just my parent? The issues are so many here, but I think those are the main ones. Yeah,
I saw Nguturi smile when you're talking about when you are ukiachwa. But he summarized 4 things. First is, parents, do we co-parent with our oldest children? I hear young people say that they make you become a co-parent. You take in too much responsibility. You talked about being seen, not being listened to. And it goes down to communication. Naomi, I just wanted you to reflect on what Davis is saying, what the young people are saying. And why do we have this disconnect? For something to get to a point, for you to get to a point where you're disconnecting from a particular entity, like a parent and a child, a normal relationship is supposed to benefit both parties. Both parties should feel like they have been heard, like they have been seen, and their needs have been met. But the moment when there's something that comes between this party and they are no longer in sync, when they're no longer in synchrony, when there's no longer agreement, then there comes a disconnect. And then from there, it depends with how you handle the situation to see that it doesn't precipitate further, or that you contain the crisis so that there still remains a semblance of a relationship that you can start building from. Interesting. You seem to be suggesting that the disconnect and the disagreement perhaps need not to be taken too far, that it can be amended. Yes. And Nguturi, do you agree with that? Or do you think that the young people still require, I hear them say that I need my rights, dad doesn't listen to me, he's always complaining, and he's too strict, he's too old school. And yet Naomi is suggesting that we need to ensure that it doesn't go too far. What's your view?
I'll ask that you repeat the question again so that I'm able to...
So why do you say that my parent is old school?
All right. I'll say, one, we find that this parent, maybe he was raised, as one of our panelists said, in the village, or where they used to use some of the strategies that are not valid as to this moment that we are living in. And you find that when the parent comes or tries those strategies, that they were used on him or her, on this current generation, you find that mostly the children or the youths, they end up either breaking or repelling at the kind of strategy that has been used on them, which mostly is by force and not by love. And so I'll say love will win the heart of a youth or a young person other than using force. How God does it is the way the parents should do it. Thank you.
Elder Nkoba, love wins. Force and fear. David said that parents instill fear. And Guturi is saying, love wins. How do parents, or how should parents ensure that they win through love?
Thank you. Love. Love is a very big word. And I think it's important that we pick it from the side of young people. Many times as parents, we are from where we are and where we have come from with our years. So it becomes so difficult for us to connect. The way we demonstrate and show love is so different than as opposed to the way those young people perceive that love. For example, if I take my child and maybe has done something and I punch the child, it's pain, maybe it's extra time denying him or her something, they will feel you hate them. So, like now there's an incident I know of, a girl who went and told the mother, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And basically that child has nowhere to sleep, has nowhere to live, by the end of the day. So the way we express that love, I think there's more knowledge needed on understanding you young people. How do you want to be loved? Because I think what parents are doing, they are giving their best to love you, to restrain you from, they have experience, benefit of years, benefit of even living, before you, they are your parents, and there is goodwill from the parents all the time. So as parents, I think we are loving our children. And why is the disconnect?
Davis, how do you want to be loved before I come to Mom? Margaret? How do you want to be loved?
Thank you for the question. How do I want to be loved? They aren't being loved right now. It's okay. But just to talk about the love itself, not necessarily how I want to be loved exactly, since I am representing people. We talk about love sometimes, but I like the practical point of love. So I have a case in point, even before I talk about it. In your own opinion, isn't it true that someone would appreciate your love most when they are the most vulnerable? Isn't that true? Yeah. So now since we're in agreement, I have a case in point. Let's say, okay, of course, every parent has their own precepts growing up. Mine, for example, told me no drugs, no point of view, unreservedly. So assume I go back home one day and they find a bottle, probably, and you know what bottle I'm talking about. How do they react? I personally am of the opinion that how you react when you find me doing some of these things that you probably say is not, especially at our age. I'm not talking about the young ones, but I'm talking about people probably my age. Would be a reflection of how much you love me, because love is not a word, but it's more or less an action, right? So perhaps you have a daughter, and she probably comes back home one day crying, and you ask her what's wrong, and she probably tells you she went to some maybe event, some party somewhere. Makiu, you already advised against going to a party, so that's the first thing. Then she says she was defiled, and probably, maybe the worst happened, maybe the worst didn't, but maybe she was defiled. So as a parent, what are you supposed to do first? Are you supposed to blame the lady for going to the party? Or are you supposed to look at her, make sure she's okay first, then you can apply your principles later? That doesn't necessarily apply to parents, but just applies to the society as large. do we blame the person who does the wrong thing, or do we blame the person who received the wrong thing for being in the wrong place?
Wow. Margaret, they are complaining that you need to go slow when they are done a mistake, and that you need to show them first empathize before you apply your principle. What's your take?
As a parent, and I'm not speaking like Davis is saying, I'm speaking for every parent. We've taught you over and over again what you ought to do and what you don't need to do. And that's the reason we work so hard to ensure that we are provided. You have the food on the table, you actually have a shelter over your ears, you are able to go to school. So when you do something and now you want me to have that time to, is it sympathize? I'm going to use sympathize, not even empathize. You want me to empathize with you. I will feel offended because it's something I've told you before and you have gone ahead to do it as a parent. Because then it shows you are being rebellious to what you've been taught.
Naomi, yes. Yes, he has a question. Today I'm letting them talk, so don't worry about the panel.
Oh, sorry. Well, first and foremost, I'd like us to agree that this is not necessarily a back and forth. It is not a scenario where we get to see who wins. It's more or less an engaging discussion to enable us understand each other, come to a common middle ground. Mm-hmm. And again, as I said, this is not a true reflection of what I personally believe. So don't hold me to book.
So he's saying that it should be discussive, should be consultative.
Yeah.
Naomi, do you believe that?
Yes. To that point,
yes.
I'd like to ask my
Margaret.
mom.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me use God's example.
Mm-hmm.
We are all sinners before the Lord. The Lord, through his 10 commandments and other books and other auxiliary commandments as well, tells us how to live life. But we look at it, it doesn't really care whether you're a parent. We're all humans, we're all sinful. So if God approached sin from the standpoint you're saying, that me already wrote the commandments, they are there, so you see them. You've been taught from when you're young.
Margaret, you want to comment on that?
Wait.
If Christ told you, just a minute, I just want to clarify your question. If Christ told you, I have taught you through the Bible over and over again, and you're still sinning, go on.
Yeah, so what if Christ told you, I've told you these things from when you're a young person? You even joined, what's the group called again? The group, I forget. Proactive, yeah.
Yes.
You were there through Pathfinder, adventure. You're now an ambassador. Now you're probably 50 years old and you're still doing the same thing I told you not to do. You have to be joking. I mean, so what if God approached it? We are not saying, I'm not saying, and I don't think they are also saying that what we're doing should be justified. I am not saying that, or they are not saying, or we are not saying that if you find us drinking, for example, you should understand that, we are youth and we should drink. What we are saying is we probably need love. I think part of the reasons why we don't stop drinking, for example, and we is a collective, I'm not saying about me. Yeah. Part of the reasons why we probably don't stop is we are rebellious. But the rebellion comes from a point of, I am trying to explain that the reason why I'm drinking is because I feel depressed, right? But you have that absolute mentality that drinking is bad. I don't care what you're going through. If you're drinking, in fact, you're not a child of the Lord, you're the child of the other one, right? And you will probably absolutely perish. And yet, sometimes we forget that this is our child. So, it's not about justifying what you're saying as being true or wrong, but it is about how you approach it. I think you would make your child stop drinking if you started approaching the whole drinking idea more or less from a point of love. Don't you think so?
Do you want to comment on that? And then I come back to Naomi. Let Mom comment on that before I go to Naomi and then Elder.
Yeah, Davis, thank you for that. He alluded to if Jesus was to take that stand. Remember, right from the beginning, I said, I grew up being told this is what you should do, and it's black and white. There is no in between. So if you become rebellious, then I also, if you go ahead and start drinking or take drugs or whatever, my mind will switch to you are rebelling to me. But I hear you that it could be attention-seeking behavior. All you want is for me to realize that I need you. I need you to sit and listen to me. But as a parent, and I'm speaking to all the parents, my age mates and above, that black and white was never, we were never shown differently. Yeah? And that is what, the 10 Commandments are there. They don't change because you've gone. And if we have set rules in the home, that is what should be done. But I would like to let another comment from whoever.
Naomi, it looks like Mom is saying that black and white should be black and white and remain black and white. It doesn't change because you're an ambassador. It doesn't change because you're a young man, Guturi. What's your take?
Okay. My opinion is from both ends. I will speak what I think a parent should do and from the side of an ambassador. Well, as David has related, God has given us free will. He has from the time when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden through and through. He has given directions. They're supposed to be followed, but we do not follow them, and there's a consequence that follows. You understand? And you are not to dictate to your parent the reaction they're going to have to your misconduct. That's my opinion. There are things that are negotiable. There are things that you can table for discussion. It depends on the magnitude of the mistake. There are those that are heinous crimes, and there are those that are just common misdemeanors. So if you blow out of proportion for, let's say, a small thing like you're supposed to turn off a tap or a light bulb, but you forget, and then it's blown out of proportion, then what you are aspiring or the response you'll get from your child will match your anger, match your indignation at their forgetting, and now the matter becomes so trivial, but now the argument is so big. And that is like most of the causes of, if you ask most people, why do you have a disagreement with your parent, they cannot remember the scenario because it wasn't something big, but it was blown out of proportion.
Okay.
Speaking for the parents, when you're approaching, let's say like when something has happened, like as David has used the example of the said bottle, you should also look back. I feel like you should look back and trace points to where this may have come from, so that when you address the issue, it is conclusive, so that you don't have to address the issue from time after time. Kuanguka mara moja si kosa. Ya pili is something different.
Elder.
Thank you. There are two aspects I want to speak on. First of all, most of us parents are parenting from fear on our past mistakes we have done before, and we are trying to correct them in our children. So this one doesn't give us trust on our children, it doesn't give us time to listen to them in a better way. Number two is communication. You see, where the disconnect starts, there's no contact. So how do we maintain contact between young people who are now young adults? It has to start early enough in our years. The biggest challenge is those times which we were calling the golden window, we have left doing other things. Now, when we want them, like Dr. was saying, you know, when how can you are 30, you want to be my friend? How do we start being friends? Honestly, it's challenging. So the question of contact, that means have respect in communication. Number 2, expectations. Let parents talk their children of their expectations in terms of age appropriate. There's nothing wrong in telling your son and your daughter, this house is how we live, and then live by that example. And number 2, on expectations, let them share to you their fears. I think the biggest challenge we have as parents is that the expectation, the realistic expectation of the young man or the young daughter is to make sure that I understand she needs to go out. She needs to go a sleepover. She needs to go and, you know, see other friends. That's her expectation. I'm not going to do anything wrong. I don't know why mom is becoming, or dad is becoming so unreasonable in that respect. So communicating the expectation early enough, creating standard procedures of confirmation, and also, you know, confidence should be done way early enough before some of these things come up. Thank you.
Let me allow the communication just before you come in. Please project for us what parents are saying in terms of the drivers of disconnect as Naomi comes on board. If I can share my screen, the second. Let's look at some of the drivers if you're able to read that. They're saying, and Naomi and Nguturi will come in, their parents are saying inadequate communication, lack of good communication, understanding situations of either side. Parents are saying we are reduced to donor roles. Wakati unataka ndio unakuja tu kuniomba pesa. Generational gap, and we are raising entitled children who are extremely selfish. And I want Nguturi to talk about selfishness while Naomi you respond to what Elder was saying about contacts and maybe your point. Parents are also saying parents are detached with their children from the formative years, as Elder is saying, because of their busy career path. So there's no real emotional, spiritual, social, and psychological connection. And parents are also saying that they fear their teenagers. And I really like Margaret to talk about why they fear. The other driver is some parents, mostly fathers, and I want you to project this so people can read, are so absorbed in their lives, career, religion, and affairs, partners, that they have no time for parenting or connecting with their teenagers. Parents are busy at work. They don't follow up keenly on their children at home. They are held at work in search of finances to sustain the family, as Margaret was saying. And they're not present to call out the men in their sons. And this leaves the teenagers feel rejected. As for the daughters, they see their fathers with young affair partners, and they too feel rejected. Now, let's begin with Naomi. What is this thing called contacts that Elder is talking about? This, because parents are saying they're detached from the children from their formative years because they're too busy chasing money.
The point I wanted to address, as Elder has put it across, is communication. Mm-hmm. For any normal relationship, whether business, social, wherever, in whatever capacity, any normal relationship has normal communication. It is only when there are abnormalities that come in that communication breaks off. So lack of communication is some kind of oxymoron, because how will you know I'm not communicating to you if we have not communicated to each other that we are not communicating? You get what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
So there's parents and ambassadors keep talking about lack of communication. No. What I feel is if you have cultivated what is called a positive sentiment override with your child from long before, so that you do not have to be in constant touch. If need arises, you can talk. But as time goes by, this child has mental powers of their own. They can deduce, they can make a choice, they can make a decision. They are becoming their own entity as each day passes. So this child should be allowed to make decisions of their own. So if you tell me I'm not communicating to you because I'm not keeping you posted in everything, then I think that is wrong. Because when do I get to be my own self? When do I get to develop the faculties that I will need as a grown-up? Also, when we talk about lack of communication, is it that we are suffering from a build-up of negativity? Because I will not terminate communication with you unless something comes up that requires for my action in that way. If maybe I had a bad interaction with you and it hurt me, so that I decide I will no longer talk to this person. Or, as you have said, parents are reduced to donor roles. If you find your parent is unreasonable, because there are parents who are unreasonable, and not all parents. Okay, it has actually been shown that most children, a research has been conducted, and it has been proven that most children die in the hands of their parents. So, if we have had bad interactions over a long period of time, who am I, or how am I going to communicate to you? How am I going to talk to you? There must be at least a flow or a pathway for us to have, like, for us to even have basic, decent talk. If there's no civility between us as a parent and as a child, then I do not think there's anything we're talking about.
So you said you trivialize some things. Parents say, "Kwa nini kuzima bulb?" It becomes a big issue. Then it continuously becomes
yes, it becomes
kidonda.
Yes. So if we have that issue today, tomorrow another issue will come up, and another over the period of time when we're living together. It's very easy for us to hate each other.
Okay, Margaret, why are you fearing? Parents are fearing teenagers. Before I go to Nguturi.
We fear because our children seem to know more than we do, and they would want to isolate themselves. So you'll get someone coming into the house, they have locked themselves into the bedroom, they are not talking, so you don't know what they are up to. Number two is because they think we are too old, like we don't know what is happening. So we fear the fact that we might appear not knowing, so that then we'll set very strict rules. Because they seem to, from the way they respond, we're like, you don't seem to appreciate, I know. So the only way I can do is become very defensive and set rules that will defend me from ever getting vulnerable to you.
All right, I want to talk to, before we go to what, this is the results from the parents' responses, by the way. So it's not me talking, you people are talking. Nguturi, parents are too busy chasing money. And it's perceived to be one of the drivers of the disconnect. And men are not calling their sons out to be men. And yet Davis is saying, nikiumia unaniambia, be a man. How should we balance that between, our busy careers and being involved in their children's life?
Thank you so much. One, understanding that the child, you did not create the child, it's God who gave you the child. Understanding that, you'll be able to understand that truly I have a duty to do. I have, because a whole human being, a soul that Christ died for, truly should be of more importance than even the job that you're going for each and every day. But I'm not saying that the parents should not go to their jobs, no. The thing is understanding your priorities and then afterwards acting upon them. I'll give an example of I'll say a member who I will not disclose their names, but one time during, I believe it was a weekend, I was around, there was a certain activity, and I observed that a parent and her daughter, they were seated somewhere. When you're walking from the main exit of the church towards the gate, there's a pavement on the left. So this mother and the daughter, they were seated on that pavement that is marked on white and black, and they were making stories and laughing together, And by observing that, I was able to understand, one, there is love, two, there is trust, and three, there is humility in that relationship. Why? Because if the parent does not come to the level of the child, then there will be that disconnect, of course, because the child will feel that I'm not understood, I'm not heard, I cannot express myself to the parent because the parent desires that whatever I know is what I know, and whatever you know, you will follow by my rules and not your rules. So I believe coming to a middle ground, or the parent coming to the level of the child, just like how Christ used to do. He used to, when he was teaching, he was able to come to the level of the children and make them understand. Sometimes he will lift them on the lap so that they feel close and loved, so that they're able to feel the love that he has for them. So understanding that will be very important. Thank you.
Let's listen to what the young people are saying. They say communication. And I want Elder to talk about that aspect of getting to the level of the young people. They say, ambassadors are saying there are differences in opinions and values. And Margaret, we talk a little about values. What values are they talking about here? And Davis, maybe you could be thinking about that. Parenting skills. I think Margaret began by saying, and young people are saying, refusing to acknowledge your child's opinion and going by the parent is always right. There's no room for discussion or compromise. It's a big threat to child-parent relationship. Transparency and accountability. Naomi, parents are cheating. Trust. Parents are not wanting to listen to what the children want to say. Where is the problem of accountability? And of course, the economy and lifestyle changes. So let's begin by what, Elder Nkoba, you can talk about this value, this issue of coming down to the level of young people. And Margaret, you talk about the value. What do they mean that there are differences in opinions and values? Elder.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I can't remember the psychologist who has discovered, who wrote a thesis and has been proved that when you come to a level of the person you're talking to, you're able to understand better. So it's the one who's up who should come down. Because the one who's down, that's her age, that's his age, can't come up. And what, in the context you're talking about young people, that the parents need to get to where the young people are. I always advise parents, just think for a minute. Think where you want that age. What you are used to do. And number two, could you want it to happen to you as to your daughter or your son the way it happened to you? Those are really thoughtful questions, what you call self-coaching questions. But in coming back to the level of young people, let me give you an example. A young lady decided, there's a time Shaggy came to Kenya, 1997. Was it 97? Yes, Shaggy came to Kenya in 1997. And a young girl told the mother the peers were going to carnival. It was in carnival. And the young girl said, you know, Mommy, I want to go. Mommy, I want to go. Mommy said, no, Mommy, I said so. So there were around a group of four. And one girl was denied to go. She committed suicide that night. I know it was in the news. It's a public thing, you know. The other one, I happen to know the other parent also. One of the parents who was a Seventh-day Adventist, what did she do? She carried her daughter to where? To carnival. She told the daughter, I'm going to stay here. As long as you are there, don't mind. You enjoy yourself inside. I'll wait. I love you so much. I can't let you go outside there alone. And it's at night. I'll wait for you until you finish and we go home. They went back home. After that night, around 2 a.m., the girl got bored and went back home. That was a turning point for that girl. What am I trying to say? Parents, yes, I don't know how much it will cost you. I think as parents, we are more intelligent, more knowledgeable, we have the resources. It's up to us to ask ourselves, how can I express myself in a safe space that my daughter and my son can decide to disclose and allow me to accompany him to the party which I think is inappropriate. Because it's good for your children to know, to be sure that my parent, I am the first priority. So this is what my advice. Now, on coming level of the parent, let the children do the talking. Listen and reason. You might save the day. Thank you.
Margaret, to you.
I was to comment on the values. the values, and I want you to know I am struggling because I'm opposing a lot of what they are saying. So, because I'm trying to think the other way. But we project to our children what we missed to. So when our children are telling us, I would like to be this, we want them to be what we failed to be as parents. And in that case, we shut them off to a point where this child is not able to move forward, or they do what Naomi was saying. The relationship is not working, so I give you what you want. I'll never want, the child doesn't, just shuts the systems and decides to go by what you want. And even if they rebel, it's because they are responding to what you want. So the thing with growing up is we also don't realize that our children change. I'm looking at Elder Misati's son seated there. What Elder Misati's son is about 5 years, I think. What he will do to the little son is not the same thing he will do to Naomi. They are at different growth developmental levels. So the fact that we don't realize our children are growing and we go by their age, we still demand of what we demanded of them when they were 5 years. Then we will reach to a time we start saying teenagers are bad. Teenagers don't listen to us. The youth are not listening to us. Why? Because you did not realize they were growing and they were changing. At one point you are being the teacher. At another level you are actually a consultant. They will consult you when they need you. So don't demand of them what you would have demanded from them when they were 5 years old. So, like I said, my expectation was to oppose, but I think I'm tired of opposing. I'm just trying to say, let's learn our children are growing up, and let's go by their age. I can see Elder Erastus shaking his head. But what I'm saying, what you'll realize is if you took yourself back to how you were growing up, because those are, take yourself to a meeting, growing up. What are those things that made you oppose your parents? What are these things that made you not communicate to your parent? Why do you want to bring them into this generation? Is it possible for you to learn ways to be able to cope with the child that you are in at any particular age? Otherwise, whatever you establish, it needs to have set grounds on what your expectations are, as Elder said, and also listening to the child.
Thank you very much. Transparency and accountability from the parents. I want Davis and Naomi to talk about that, and then we'll go to the second and final part of this discussion, where I'll ask the two parents here to speak a little bit more on what skills parents need to take home with. Naomi, parents don't seem to do what they are saying, asking of you. Why? Because they're saying transparency and accountability.
Parents don't seem to do what they ask of us.
Yes, because they are not doing. Young people are saying parents are cheating. They don't trust their parents. Parents are not wanting to listen to what the children want to say, and they always want to force. So they seem to be saying, usiende carnival lakini wao wanaenda.
Okay, that is quite hard. Of course, it's not expected of us, given the standards of our church, but it is actually sad that there is such a situation. Speaking for the young people, or what I think I would do in that case, you see, you are a different entity from your parent. You are not, you're not like an extension cable. You are different from your parent. And so your sins will be counted upon your head. So it does not mean that because your parents are doing it, it is right. If your parent is cheating, then you're not supposed to cheat because your parent is cheating, because this will be counted on you. And then if your parents are not trustworthy, they are not accountable in their places of work, in their finances in the house, wherever, then that doesn't mean that is the path you should follow. I would give advice from the book of Proverbs chapter 4, and I'll read from KJV. It says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. That loosely translated says, of all things, whatever you do, however else you'll do it, it doesn't matter, get wisdom. And wisdom will help you discern, is this the right path? Does this mean that if my parent does it, I should do it? Because if you look at other sections in the Bible, it will also tell you, like in Proverbs 4:23, it will tell you, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the wellspring of life. So if your parents are cheating, your heart is not their heart. God's expectation of you and the expectation of them, while they may be almost the same, He will still count your sins on your head. So that doesn't mean that if you're disappointed in your parents, then you should follow the same route.
Thank you. You're not an extension cable for your parents. David, Nguturi, you seem to be, she seemed to have rattled you.
Actually, I would like to add on what she has said, but more to explain that if the parent is walking in the wrong ways, yet he wants the child to walk in the right ways, for sure the child will not be able to understand why is this all happening. The other thing, when you read the chapter that is chapter 56 of Desire of Ages, you'll realize that Christ, by telling the disciples that do not suffer the children to come to me, like he was trying to tell the disciples not to withhold all, to try and chase away the children from coming to Christ. The other way Ellen White explains about this is that parents sometimes can be able to, by their traits or by what they do, they can be, they may not encourage the children to go to Christ. Instead, they'll repel them away from Christ by their character. And so on that, I will say that yes, they are different entity, but also the child is learning from the parent, because it's the parent who brought the child as a family. They brought the child as a blessing from God to this world. Thank you. Yes.
When I was talking about the child not being an extension cable of the parent, what I meant was, you see, we are, of course, predisposed to genetically, environmentally, to do what our parents do. We learn from them. But in this case, relating to them as ambassadors, we want to break off. There are things that they say, no, you shouldn't do, and you do them. There are things that they would say, this is not the right thing to do, and they do it the right way, and you still want to do it your way. So in the same vein, if they are doing something wrong, and you feel like it's wrong, you shouldn't follow them in the same path. If you're going to maintain your individuality in doing what is right against your parents, or doing what is not necessarily right, because there are things that we choose that are not right, if we're being realistic. Your parent tells you don't go out, you sit and think, because at this level, they have somewhat been reduced to becoming consultants. It is more of, okay, so what do you think? Okay, fine. I will still do it as I please. You see? So in the same way, if your parent is involved in corruption, if your parent is an idolater, if your parent is adulterous, then you shouldn't follow that path. You should also sit and think.
Thank you very much. I think we'll sum up because of time. I can see we have 7 minutes. But I would like Elder Nkoba to talk about what principles should we follow as parents to help this community reset this disconnect that exists.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. I've done around 5 things as a take-home for parents, which are very important, that has caused the disconnect. First of all, I would like us to refer to Proverbs chapter 2 and verse 6. And the Bible says, For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. So no parent should be indebted with information. Find information everywhere. Talk to parents. Read books. I like the preacher today. At least whatever you want to do, read 2 books. It's extremely important. Now, number 1, every parent should know. First cause of disconnect, number 1 is development. As children develop, they have to get out of our homes, and somehow they have to go outside there and form the other tribe where they become themselves and make their own circles. So please, let's allow our children in a safer environment that they can be able to do that. Number 2, know that when they were young, their mind, everything is about you, around you, and everything else. Now they have to tear off to find peace in their friends, their peers. So let us empower them when they are young. Let us know developmental issue can help, can create what we can call disconnect. Number 2, environmental factors. There are so many environmental factors that affect our children to be seen to be out of course or disconnected. This work environment, home environment. We are talking about unbalanced homes. We are talking about a divorced home or something like that, which is unbalanced. Sometimes can affect our children. In fact, I read a quote in a book which was saying, children raised in aggressive families environment are most likely to be aggressive and create the families of the same nature. Number 3, very important, is shame. Shame. Maybe some of us who are in boarding schools, we know of girls or boys who are saying, "Awana wazazi," and they have both parents. All right. Or somebody, the father is a pastor, and my father is not a pastor. You ni wongo. So children suffer rejection when we go through shame. There are 3 types of shame. There's individual shame, there is family shame, and religious shame. By the way, we talk about religious shame as a church, as elders, as members of, the ones they look up to. Are we living to the life of Christ, which can create an influence in them? So number 4, technology. What has separated us from the disconnect is technology. You are in a home of 5 people and no one's talking to anyone. On your gadgets, everyone on your gadgets, everyone on your gadgets. So technology is also a part of what we need to check as a family, as a people, what has caused disconnection. How can we harness technology in a useful way? I'm giving a summary. The next one is relationships. Our children, they are born not to make meaningful relationships because we as parents, we have allowed them to do things outside relationships. Something was on a nation paper this week on Wednesday about a gentleman who's bisexual. Which was that document? He was sent as many of the words of New Life because the parent was saying, the young man, don't involve yourself with the girls. So the guy is bisexual, and then the wife doesn't know. So relationships are very important. We need to empower our children to make meaningful relationships. In fact, ask the ambassadors of this church, do they have a trusted friend? Most likely, just as should be no. So we need to, those are sorts of, if they can't have that relationship with their peers, then at home it will be very difficult. And maybe the last thing I want to share as a summary, our time is running out, is what we call they lack adversity quotient. Our children, we are not building them for the world. We are building them for our homes. That's why, as parents, we can still exam for them. We can, a child, we don't want any pain for them. It beats me when I hear parents say, I will never want my son, my daughter to suffer the way I suffered. Simply because you are stepping down going to school. Simply because you eat together every day. You are condemning that kind of lifestyle by the end of the day. So we need to start our disconnect really. Our children, where a little pain, they have run away. At the workplace, they can't hold a workplace. They can't have, these pressures of work, office politics, there are so many things. So I rest my case there, but I think it's important that we need to really study more on some of those things and see how we can work so they can be able to produce the results we want. Thank you.
I'm going to add on to what Elder said. We decided to hold this discussion haphazard as it appeared because we were presenting all the views. But what I would request, because there are young parents here, remember, your child will learn from what you model. Remember, there is nothing wrong with listening to that little one. So right from when you get that child, allow them time to always blab and say whatever they want to say. And when you build that relationship from when you are young, even when they get to a bartender, it will not be hard to communicate. And Davis can attest to that. The communication he has had with his parent over and over since he was young. There is nothing he cannot tell his mom or his dad, and there is nothing he cannot listen from them. That is because there has been communication from right when they are young. The other thing is visioning together. There's an elder here who calls me strategic. But I do think it's important to have a strategic plan for your family. Reasoning together where you take all the views of everyone, from that child up to the dad, the mom, and vision together so that in that visioning you're also setting boundaries. What is it that might make us not achieve our expected behavior as a family, products that we want to achieve as a family? How can we do that? And when you have that vision, all the family members will work towards that vision. But when you leave it for you to dictate that I want you to get an A, who did you set that goal with? You did not even allow me time to express what I want. So have a vision for your family. The other thing is, let's do self-awareness test for all of us. Do you know who you are as a parent? Can you take a moment and just analyze who are you and what are you giving to these little gifts that God has given you? Once you analyze who am I, what makes me happy, what is my spiritual goals, and all that, physical and everything. When you know who you are, then it will be easy for you to understand even the children you are bringing up. The other thing is, let's embrace our children. The prodigal son. When you read the story of the prodigal son, when you look at the life of the dad, his reaction, yes, our children might have gone astray. And Davis, I know I was telling you, you're drinking and all that. My stand will be, welcome them home unconditionally. Do not put conditions. But in that, allow them to suffer the consequences themselves. Do not help them with the consequences. Allow them to suffer the consequences of the decisions they make. Whether they are young, like if the child is about to fall, don't be the parent who is always going to pick and do, that kind of parenting where you are preventing them from experiencing pain. Make sure that as the father of the prodigal son did, even before the son confessed, he had been looking from afar to see whether he can see his son. And when he arrives, that son is dressed in the best garments ever. That son is given the best ever. But of course, he has already lost his money. He's not going to give him the money back. Let them suffer the consequences and allow them to be children. Then, even if your child rolls their eyes, that's an example I always use. When our children are growing, they will reach a point they want to roll their eyes to you. Please just insist on what you want to be achieved. That is just a stage. One day they will just realize those eyes you are rolling, there is nothing you're doing. So please study each child individually. Just know their personality and deal with that child as unique as they are. Do not compare our children. Otherwise, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much this afternoon. Thank you to the panelists. I'll give you a minute each to summarize your reflections and say any last comment before we sum up. Let's begin with Davis. You had a comment and then summarize.
Okay, well, I've been following through, and the way I see it, this is not much a problem of the values as we probably would try to put it out or anything of the sort. I think it's more or less a problem of perspective. I appreciate that our elders, our parents, have a wealth of knowledge that some of us can't fathom, I know. And I know when your parent probably tells you as a lady, maybe that shirt, the skirt is too short. They know where they're coming from. And I know they say that from a point of experience. So maybe if you let's say I, probably have a dream of becoming a DJ, right? And my parent tells me, hey, you don't have any other dream, Mama, what's the problem? They know where they're coming from, right? They have lived long enough to understand that I can see DJs around here. And unless you're probably unscrupulous or you're just very lucky, the probability of you making it is probably not that much. However, there's a way to telling your child about the same. I think you as a parent probably taking time to appreciate this person's talent, then probably later on, maybe when they're grown up, you'd probably now divulge that I know you're good in probably mixing or something, but here's what life holds. I think that's better than shutting someone out right from when they're young. I am very sure that our minds as we grow are very volatile as children. So you'd probably see it from a point of, I know what's right for my child, and I know being a DJ is wrong, and when you become a DJ, you're lost. But I, as a child, I'm seeing it from a point of, I want to become a DJ. I don't see a problem with being a DJ, but my parent has told me, no. So what does that do to the child's mind? The child grows up being negative-minded about the parent. And to the parents, I'd ask you, what's your goal? Is your goal to be right, or is your goal to have your child as your friend? Which makes more sense to you? What would you be happy with? Are you happy being right all the time? Or are you happy, irrespective of the outcome, because I mean, it'd either be right or wrong, would you be happier keeping your child as your friend? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you happy to be your child's friend, or are you happy that you've achieved the goal of the family goals? 1 minute each, and then we sum up.
All right. Mine will come from Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18, where God is calling not only sinners, but also the parents. It's where he says that, come, let us reason together. So my take will be that let the parents learn from God, because they're in a position to learn from God, and let them approach also the children in a position to reason with them, because God has been able to give each and every individual in this whole world a brain to think. They have intelligence. And so let the parents approach the children in a perspective of trying to reason with them, and not only reasoning, but also studying them, studying their weaknesses, their strengths, what they can be able to achieve and what they are not able to achieve. And I believe with that, there will be harmony between the parents and the children. And not only that, but I'll finish with a quote that is from Desire of Ages, chapter 5, 17, verse 6, which says, I'll replace the word Christian worker with Christian parent. So the Christian parent may be Christ's agent in drawing these children to the Savior. By wisdom and tact, he may bind them to his heart. He may give them courage and hope. And through the grace of Christ, may see them transformed in character, so that of them it may be said, of such is the kingdom of God. So my advice to the parent is that maybe your child seems to be at a point where you have lost hope. The thing is, from what the servant of God is saying, that by wisdom and tact, and you will be able to give them hope. You'll be able, and also through the grace of Christ, they will be able to change if you don't give up on them. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
My take home, or what I would like as parents to notice is, like I started, where we grew up, we had aunties, we had neighbors, we had people who played different roles in our lives. You could send your child maybe to an auntie or someone to talk about them, to tell them something that you think they are not doing right. But now we are living in cities where I don't know my next door neighbor. Please become that to your children. Be the grandmother, be the auntie or the uncle, be the father. Of course, you have your role as a father and a mother. What I'm trying to drive is remember the roles, how you are. There were people who addressed different things, but you are given that responsibility to do it now on your own as a family. So there are times to be parent, there are times to be a friend, there are times you're going to be the grandmother, what role my grandmother played, and what role the auntie played. So let's not the world out here is already too tough for our children. Please make home livable for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi?
I would just like to leave us with a quote from Counsels to Parents, Teachers, and Students. Ellen G. White talks about when God will come and he will ask you, where is thy flock? So parents will be asked the same question. As ambassadors will be asked, I put you in this world, I gave you talents, what did you do with them? The church will be asked, we gave you these children to mentor, to take care of, even before mission. She speaks in chapter 15 where she says, even before mission, the most important of duties for the church is to rear the children that it has been given. So we should all put in our best efforts to ensure that the church has another generation. It is our most important duty, even before any other.
Thank you. Elder, one comment?
To the parents, there are 4 universal needs of children. That's food, sleep, attention, and routine. If you do these 4 things, you create an emotional bank account that you withdraw when they become teenagers and young adults. Number 2, for my ambassadors, 2014, my son brought me a book from school which had this quote. 2014, children think their parents are ignorant and stupid. By the time the children discover their parents were right, they have children who think they are ignorant and stupid. Let me repeat. Children think their parents are ignorant and stupid. By the time they discover that their parents were right, they have children who think they are ignorant and stupid. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the beginning of a series of conversation we'll have with parents and ambassadors in the club to support our young people to understand the need for communication, to understand the need of engagement with our children. Church, we have a role. We need to establish a parental coaching system for our parents. Let's not assume the young parents know what to do, as our sister Margaret is saying. It's a challenge to the church, a challenge to all of us. May God bless you. Shall we pray? Our Lord and our Father, we have been given a responsibility to talk to young people as parents, and as parents also to listen to the young people. Help us to understand and come to a middle point. Please, God, help us so that we may listen. Help us that we may encourage our young people to remain in church. In Jesus' name I believe and pray.